Well, we want to introduce you to Stanford Professor William Damon, and he's also a senior fellow here at the Hoover Institution. Professor, what do you teach here at Stanford?
I teach human development through life. We call it sometimes from birth to death or womb to tomb, everything that happens from infancy to old age. But my special interest is on character and character development and how people develop their values and their purpose in life, and especially youth development. The real focus is at the adolescent, early adult years, and in terms of education, how we might even help young people create a good direction for themselves, a good purpose that takes them through life in a fulfilled way.
Well, that kind of ties into your newest book, Failing Liberty is the name of it, How We Are Leaving Young Americans Unprepared for Citizenship. And in here, Professor, you write that the most serious danger Americans now face, greater than terrorism, is that our country's future may not end up in the hands of a citizenry capable of sustaining liberty that has been America's most precious legacy.
Well, that's right, because in any society, if you talk about the future, you're really talking about young people, because they will inherit the society. And we have a democracy, a very precious blessing, and it doesn't run itself. It has to be managed by people that understand the rules of the game, that value it, that appreciate liberty and freedom. And if you fail to transmit to the younger generation an appreciation of how important liberty and democracy are, and knowledge about how the system works, how they can participate in a constructive way, if you fail to do that, the future of the democracy itself is endangered, and much more endangered than I think any foreign enemy could ever place us in, because we're very strong in terms of military and even the economy, but it will never survive or thrive if the younger people that will inherit it don't appreciate it, don't value it, and don't understand how they can participate in a constructive manner.
Why aren't younger people, in your view, appreciating it and valuing it like in the past?
Well, it's not their fault. I think a lot of it is our fault, the adult generation that has the responsibility of educating young people in the history of the country, in even not just the knowledge. The knowledge is important, that they understand the tradition and the Constitution, and we're failing to do a good job on that. Of all the subjects that students are tested in, including math, which is not necessarily one of our strong suits, history is the worst. Students know less about history or civics than any subject matter. But even beyond knowledge, the knowledge is important, there's an emotional sense of attachment to a society that's really important if you want to encourage young people to dedicate themselves and to make the kind of sacrifices that people need to make in order to think beyond themselves and to promote the welfare of the entire country. And that just doesn't happen by itself. In order for them to develop that kind of attachment and appreciation, they need to understand how many people have sacrificed for our freedoms and what it takes to keep liberty going. It doesn't just happen by itself. It requires a commitment to the kind of institutions and the kind of values that our founders, back in the days of Ben Franklin, gave to us.
What are some of those values?
Well, one of them is a sense of beyond the self, a sense that you're not just in it. It's not just all about me, that there is something broader that you might call the national good or the national purpose, that especially is important in times of crisis. If there's an economic crisis or if the country is attacked in some way, it's very important for people to rally behind the country and to gather together and to make the kind of sacrifices that we've seen historically in this country, certainly as recently as World War II, for example. And in order for people to be willing to make those sacrifices, they have to value the national good, and there has to be some sense. I mean, we used to call it patriotism, some sense of dedication to the nation. And patriotism is not a word that's in favor at the current time in educational circles. There's very few efforts to really promote a sense of love for the country.
Is teaching of civics gone from schools, or do they still teach civics?
It's not gone, but it's been marginalized. It's certainly not where the hearts and minds of the people who make policy, and when I say people who make policy, the national leaders in our Department of Education, the big foundations, the business community. I think all of these people, in a very well-intentioned way, are promoting the goals of success in the sense of competence, the ability to do math, the so-called STEM subjects, so that our students will be able to compete in an economic sense with people from other countries. And all of that's fine. I'm totally behind high standards of academic excellence. But people have been so single-minded about this as an agenda and put forward a system of testing students that is very high stakes for both the student and the teacher, that this has really monopolized the agenda of a lot of our schools and most of our public schools, to the extent that civics, history, a lot of the subject matter that leads into the capacity to be a good citizen have been marginalized. And they're taught, but they're taught often in a very boring way and in a way that doesn't foster an appreciation for what's really at the heart of the American tradition.
You also say that a crisis of faith is one of the problems that we have in your book, Failing Liberty.
That's right. Let's take one of the concepts that's been important to the country for at least some generations, the idea of the American dream, which has given hope to not only people who are born here, but to immigrants from all over the world that come and aspire to be Americans because they believe that this is a place where you can find your destiny. And it has to do with freedom, and it has to do with the ability to follow your conscience, to speak your piece, to choose your own path in life. And the American dream has been constantly disparaged in the media and in education. It's kind of an interesting exercise to Google the phrase "the American dream," which I've done recently. And what you come up with is literally, and I'm not exaggerating, millions of citations, most of which say things like, the American dream is disappearing, or the American dream is dead, or the vanishing American dream. And these are the subtitles sometimes of books, because the word is out in the public discourse, among the media, among the intellectual circles, being transmitted in classes, social studies classes, that no longer do we have opportunity in the country, and therefore the American dream is dead. And that is so misleading for young people. And that's what is one of the things that's led to what I call the crisis of faith. Because, first of all, a couple of points here that it's important to make, that I make in Failing Liberty. First of all, the American dream was never supposed to be only about material accomplishment, about accumulating a number of BMWs in your garage or something like that, getting rich because you have invented a better mousetrap, which is the way a lot of people write about it. It's really about the capacity to follow your dreams and to achieve your destiny as you see fit, with nobody coming along to tell you, you have to fit into this slot, or you can't say this, or you have to live in this box. And part of that, of course, is the ability to provide for yourself and provide for your family, and there is economic opportunity here. But giving young people the message that it's all over, there's no chance for you to succeed, is nothing more than a self-fulfilling prophecy for young people. It's the surest way to get them discouraged, to get them to not think it's worth trying. And on an individual level, there's plenty of opportunity for young people. And interestingly, the groups that the